Hi, welcome to Weekend Review, where we catch up on some of the week's big headlines. Joined this week by a special guest. We have the bosses with us, Kelly Fry, also Ben Felder from the Watchdog Desk, and of course my old friend Don Mecoy from Business. Kelly, let's get started with you. The paper has been involved for several years in an effort to shine a light on a major problem in Oklahoma, and that's the opioid epidemic. Just talk a little bit about why that's so important to us and why we think it's important to our readers.
Well, it's such a major problem here in Oklahoma. I mean, it's an undercurrent that lies beneath a lot of the problems that we have in our state. Domestic violence, child abuse, our foster care system is bursting at the seams. And it just leads to a lot of other problems. And we don't have good treatment. We don't have a lot of available beds in this state that we can't, I mean, we have some good treatment, but we don't have the beds to get the people in who need it most. So it's been impacted by the state funding, budget cuts, and so it's really just kind of exacerbating. But we're an unhealthy state. You know, we have high incidence of obesity and diabetes, and heart disease, and we smoke too much. I mean, we're a very unhealthy state, and so addiction would just go right along with it. It's a brain disease, so it's just another unhealthy indicator that goes on in our state.
And we'll have another story this weekend from Jacqueline Cosgrove. It looks at the 8 years into essentially what has been identified as an epidemic. You know, where are we in the effort to combat it? The state's taken several measures in the last few years.
We have. We've made some progress. We have the prescription monitoring program, which cuts down on doctor shopping, and it has had a positive impact. We carry Narcan. Our emergency and some of our policemen carry Narcan with them, and that can save people instantly. We still don't have the Good Samaritan law, which probably needs to be looked at again, which says if somebody's overdosing, you can call 911 without fearing that everyone there is going to be arrested. Many states have it, and it does save lives as well. So that's one hurdle we still need to get over. And then we have the Attorney General who's suing pharmaceutical companies because the amount of money that this state has spent to fight this epidemic, which actually initially can start when a doctor picks up a prescription pad and a pen. So a lot of addiction can start right there. And so in the early days, doctors didn't realize how addictive it was because it was marketed as if it were not as highly addictive. So it takes medicine a long time to turn around. They are slow to change, slow to take in new information. And so we have seen now some of that has picked up, and doctors are more mindful of it. And I think, you know, there's always a few bad apples, but that is the, you know, very small percentage.
And we're covering this story from any number of angles.
Right.
We have a lot of coverage planned coming up in the coming months, from everything from how we teach our doctors to what's being done in the medical community to try to alert them to this problem. You know, I think the thing that people understand is that the opioid epidemic, unlike a lot of other epidemics involving drug abuse, is that a lot of these folks are folks who got addicted who aren't what you would consider your stereotypical drug abuser. These are people who may have actually been given a prescription for an injury,
For wisdom teeth.
Yeah, developed a problem with getting rid of it.
Could be anything.
So it's young, it's old, it's men, it's women, it's moms, it's dads, it's grandmas and grandpas. There are a lot of people out there that are confronting this.
It crosses every socioeconomic background, but addiction in anyone from any background is very ugly as it progresses. So you might have people buying heroin who you never in a million years would have thought that they would be seeking a heroin dealer because they started out on oxycodone, you know, or hydrocodone.
Right, and Ben is one of the people who will be taking a look at that issue, looking at how it impacts the schools and what schools are doing to sort of
what their prevention has been like. I mean, most of us who went through school can recall going through some kind of maybe drug prevention or education program like DARE. But as drug addiction is evolving and changing, our schools keeping up with that change. And you know, without giving away too much, the simple answer is some, but not as much as they could be, and that's a lot that has to do with a lot of factors. Funding is one major issue. Just the culture of schools have changed quite a bit. There's a lot of focus on testing and core subjects to where getting kids out of class to attend an assembly or to go through a drug prevention program can be really tough. And so taking a look at what schools are doing, what other organizations are doing to kind of adapt to the changing landscape of drug addiction.
And again, this is Addicted Oklahoma. It's an ongoing series that we've been running for now a couple of years actually, and we have a lot more stories planned. If you have any suggestions or ideas of stories that you think we might want to touch on here, let us know. I mean, we always want to hear those suggestions. So, Ben, let's talk to another issue about the schools. Emergency certification of teachers. Again, this week the state school board took some actions.
Yeah, so real quick background, if a school is looking to hire a teacher but they can't find a certified applicant, they can apply to the State Board of Education to put in an emergency certified teacher. So this is someone that does not have the certification in either that grade area or subject area that they want to teach. Schools are getting ready for classes to start next month. Last year, a lot of attention to the fact that the state set a new record of a little over 1,100 emergency certified teachers. Yesterday, the state board met and approved another batch of nearly 650, I believe it was, or 630, and brought the total to 850 for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. So we're over halfway to where we were all of last year in just the first 2 months. It's important to note that August is usually the month when you see the most requests. So it's very likely that next month when the state board meets again that we will set a new record just 3 months in.
What's the concern about emergency certified teachers? I mean, you have the people who will say, these are people who may have real world experience. What's wrong with having them be in the classroom?
Well, the global concern is that just the increase in the need speaks to a larger issue of not enough teachers coming out of traditional college prep programs, some teachers leaving the state and the profession. Yes, the number of emergency certified teachers only represents about 3% of all teachers across the state. So at first glance, it doesn't look like that big of a number. But just 4 years ago, we weren't even cracking 100. So the growth is really where this the big story comes. Looking specifically at the teachers, the concern comes, well, who are these teachers? I mean, most parents would want their kid to be taught by a traditionally trained, certified teacher. There has been some questions about, well, maybe these are just teachers that are certified in another area, another grade, so they've got kind of the classroom management training and the pedagogy down, but they just don't have the specific certification in their subject area. Well, we learned yesterday that just 27% of those that have been approved for this year have a certificate in another area. So the vast majority of these emergency certified teachers are not traditionally trained and don't hold a teaching certificate in another area. Now, there are some that like to think, and we're actually taking a closer look at this in the coming weeks, taking a detailed look at who these teachers are to hopefully answer some of these questions. But some may think, well, maybe these are, some retired engineers that are going back into the classroom. Some of these are people that are looking for a more stable job. And you have to ask yourself, if you're looking to teaching right now as a more stable job that offers higher pay and higher stability, I mean, what situation are you coming out of? Because it's well known what just what the current state of teaching is right now when you look at salaries and working conditions.
Absolutely, and there's more controversy in the school world this week too, in terms of charter schools filing a lawsuit about their funding.
Yeah, so a local charter school organization, which members is made up of the nearly 30 charter schools across the state, have filed a lawsuit in Oklahoma County, claiming that the funding disparity, or there's a funding disparity through the state aid formula. Charter schools do get money through the state aid formula. They don't receive funds through some of the local sources of revenue that traditional public schools receive. They're not asking for a specific change. They're just asking that the court acknowledge that there's a disparity, that the legislature's intent is that all public school students, charter or not, should receive the same amount of funding. It's really unknown where this lawsuit will go, but in talking to people in the education community, a lot of people see this as kind of a way to start that conversation, maybe give some lawmakers who are very supportive of charters, which continue to grow, a little bit of cover to say, you know what, maybe there are some things that we need to do specifically to pump more money into charters. Charters are growing, but ironically, one of the reasons they're not growing as quickly as maybe in some other states is because they are reliant on that state aid formula, which is right now relatively low compared to other states.
Yeah,
Would that include online charter schools as well?
It would include online charter schools, which right now is where the bulk of the growth. About 23,000 students are in charter schools. Half are virtual, half are your traditional brick and mortar.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. Don, let's talk about the business world. Things are blowing out in western Oklahoma, I guess, on a big deal.
Yeah, the wind always blows in the panhandle, and that's turned into money for some folks out there. PSO, which is the main electric utility in northeast and eastern Oklahoma, including Tulsa, and in southwest Oklahoma, including Lawton, PSO and one of its sister companies have put together a $4.5 billion project to basically build what will be the nation's largest wind farm out in the Oklahoma Panhandle, and also it would deliver the power directly to a substation in Tulsa, which is a little different kind of a model where they were going to build the power line as well, and there are going to be hundreds of brand new GE turbines going up in Texas County and Cimarron County.
And if you drive out that way, it's changing the landscape out there. It really is, and it's transforming a lot of those communities in terms of job growth. And
well, while they're building this, they're saying that there's going to be 4,000 jobs created during the construction, and there'll be another 4,000 indirect jobs that will be related to that project. Of course, once it gets built, there'll be about 80 permanent jobs in this wind farm to keep it going over the years. The other big thing for that area is these generate a lot of property tax, and that they were saying over the life of the project that these counties will see about $300 million in property tax paid by this wind farm.
And our energy team is all over that story, as they have been about the wind energy issue statewide.
Yeah, in fact, we had a story today saying, not counting this project, they're anticipating that fairly soon Oklahoma will go from the number 3 to the number 2 wind producer in the state, trailing only Texas.
And if you ever wondered about what it's like in one of those things, Juliana Keeping on our staff actually went up in one with a couple of the people who repair them, and it's a really interesting story, and it answered a lot of questions I always kind of had about driving by those things. You might want to check that out. Kelly, this is the part of the show where we usually talk about K-State football. But because the sports editor is not here today, I guess we'll forego that part of the program. Unless you had anything you wanted to say about the K-State football program.
I've got nothing.
Okay.
It really doesn't matter because the control room has turned off the camera. This is the part.
That's not true. And I guess OU and OSU are they're playing this year, I understand. So
They're muddling forward.
Muddling
Favored
forward.
to finish first and second in the conference, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Who's number 3 though?
I'm not sure.
Kansas State.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. We'll talk about this later.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the kind of news you can get every day. Pick up a paper, check us out online. We'll see you next week.